call tonight's regular council meeting to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Rationale, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of August 20th, 2018 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, I'd like to call any members of the public up who would like to come and present to council on any topic of their choice. They can come and sit at this chair here, and there's a microphone there that has a little green button you press, and come speak to us on any topic of your choice. Welcome.
Okay, sorry. Can I have those instructions again?
Yes, so this microphone,
Yeah.
that microphone, our councillor Joy Thorkelson's on at the moment from away. But this mic here with the green button there, you can press that green button to activate the mic. And just say your name and where you're from for our corporate administrator as well.
No problem. Green button. Good.
Perfect.
My name's Paul Legase, and I live in Prince Rupert, and I'm the coordinator and poverty law advocate for the Prince Rupert Unemployed Action Center. And I'm with two of my clients tonight. I'm with Ms. Darren Horn and Mr. Dunvan Nguyen. And I'll keep it brief as I can. But simply said, 10 years ago, November 10th, 2008, Zeno Krekik, the planning consultant for the city of Prince Rupert, recommended, so we're going back 10 years, that DN Seafoods be allowed to change the zoning on their property from R2, which is a two-family zone, and P1, which is schools, institutional, and public use zones, to M2, which is a light industrial 2 zone. And the reason that this was permitted is because DNN Seafoods had specific sign commitments with each of the mobile home owners. There's a mobile home park, and yeah, the city was just concerned, yeah, we could do this, but we would like to see something in writing, and that's what was arranged. This included Ms. Horn and Mr. Nguyen. Now, that agreement says many things, but the agreement does state if they continue their occupancy of the property and pay their rent as required, their manufactured homes may remain on the property indefinitely. The key word here is indefinitely. I've given council a copy of that signed agreement between the homeowners and the proprietor, and it's a contract. Only because DNN Seafoods had specific signing commitments with the manufactured homeowners, council in turn permitted these zoning changes that DNN desired. However, on August 1st, 2018, Mr. An Lee, the owner of DNN Seafoods, refused Ms. Horn and Mr. Nguyen's pad rent monies for the month of August. They went into their business, Cal Tire, to pay their pad rent, and it was refused. They were later that same day served a final notice demanding that they need to be completely out of the property by the following date and time, 11:59 p.m. on August 1st, 2018. And I've given you a copy of that. Mr. Lee's not only trying to break his contract with Ms. Horn and Mr. Nguyen, but he's going back on the arrangements he made with the city of Prince Rupert that allowed him to have his land rezoned. So Ms. Horn and Mr. Nguyen are here before council to inquire what, if any, action the city might be able to take against Mr. Lee and DNN Seafoods for violating these agreements, and if there's anything the city can do to protect Ms. Horn and Mr. Nguyen from losing their manufactured homes as a result of what Mr. Lee's trying to force upon them. We've written few letters over the last few months, and they've been largely ignored. And then again, they're being demanded to get off the property. What makes it even more troubling is, as I'm sure you're aware, these are the last two manufactured homes in the city of Prince Rupert. So it's not even as if they can move their homes somewhere else. There's literally nowhere else to move them. And, well, we know what happened in Port Edward, so that's not an option either. But the key thing is they're homeowners. They own these homes. They've lived there many years. They're residents of here. Yeah, it's quite disturbing, because ultimately what this means is, well, I'll be frank, they were offered $2,000 to tear down their homes and get off the property. You know, how would you feel if somebody offered you $2,000 to tear your home down? Anyways, I believe he's violated that contract, and he's not a man of his word. But if you two folks could just briefly tell them who you are and your connection with Rupert, just so there's a face to the names.
Hi, my name's Darren Horn. I've lived on Mountain View lease for over 20 years. I've rented, then bought the place I rented in. Sadly, it burned down, so I had, thankfully, insurance, and replaced the unit, which is now a 96. It could be moved. I mean, it's a beautiful place, but there's sadly no pad to move it to. I'm raising two kids that are, one's going into grade 11, into a program that he's worked hard to get into. So moving isn't an option. And yeah, I've lived there 20 odd years, so it's home.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Dũng Văn Nguyễn. I got a feeling this very sad about I lose my home with the owner for the kids my out on the land. I was lived there for over 20 years. So anyway, this is my home sweet home, and they try to put me away with that. And they just want to pay me like $2,000 to walk out of my home. And I can't do that because I got kids. $2,000, what can I do with? I live in a homeless, something like that? No, I'm sorry. And I don't want to move out for that. And one more thing, I have no choice to move that trailer to go because this Prince Rupert have nowhere to put that trailer. So I really don't want to stay there again. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions or points of clarity, and I just ultimately we're asking, because these contracts were done in good faith with the city of Prince Rupert, overseeing it. If there's anything, I don't know, can ideally if he just accepts the rent, everything's simple. But
Well, this is a very unfortunate event. The only thing I can comment on right now is that we're going to have to look into this, and I know that's a timely matter, so we'll have to get on top of looking into that. I'm not sure what the legislation is or what the agreement is, to be honest with you. So we'll have to get our planning department engaged, and we'll have to get our administration engaged, and we will get back to you guys as soon as possible with some sort of response on where the city's at with that. But at the top of my mind right now with council, just getting this information through a committee of the whole, we'll have to look into it further. So I'm going to commit to you that we're going to do our best to fully analyze the situation and see if there's a resolution that can be had. Councillor Cunningham?
After reading all these papers, you know, my attitude is once a deal, always a deal. The owner of this property got it rezoned, and the city did it in good faith, taking his word that he would stand behind his word. Is, you know, in this town, your word's your word. And I find this very disturbing that 10 years later he thinks he can just go back on a deal not only with the tenants but with the city too, because the city actually rezoned this under the understanding that he would let these people that were owner occupied there indefinitely, and now he sort of wants his cake and eat it too, and he's led the city down the garden path as far as I'm concerned too. And I think this should, if we don't have any recourse for a rezoning, it's a lesson we can learn from this, that if we're going to rezone something, there should be some teeth in that rezoning. But I honestly don't know where we stand with this. It might just be a tenant-landlord dispute, but you have contracts, and those contracts are signed by both him and you. So, you know, I'm hoping we can do something. If we can't, I really think you're on solid ground anyway.
Go ahead.
I think it's quite a serious situation, because I was on council at the time that this agreement was written, and you know, I was very concerned that at the time that they were closing down, going to close, that would mean the closure. If we rezoned it, it would mean the closure of the mobile home park, and so, you know, we had quite a discussion about it at council, and we were assured that this document, that it's not just an agreement between the landowner and the tenant. It was an agreement along with us on October 17th, 2008. There's an agreement, and it was written to Gordie Howie, who was our CAO at the time, and it was brought to council. And it was on the basis of this letter, which says that it's under Royal LePage letterhead, but it's signed by Victor Priste on behalf of On Lee from DNN Seafoods. And it says that concerning those manufactured homes, and they list them, units 6, 106, 116, 115, 114, 113, and 119, located on the aforementioned property, Mr. On Lee of DNN Seafoods has asked me to convey the following. As long as those units are owner-occupied, they may remain on the property. If they are rented, they must be removed at the owner's expense. If they are sold, they must be removed at the owner's expense. If at any time the present owner wants to remove their unit off the property on Lee, DNN Seafoods will pay the owner $5,000. If at any time the owner wants to move and or leave the unit on the property, DNA will pay the pay the owner 1 year's pad rent. So if you want to move and leave the property, there's there's a different agreement as if the owner wants to remove their unit off the property. But if they remain owner occupied, they may remain on the property. And then of course they signed a similar thing with every one of the owners. But what concerns me is that we were assured at the time that this was going to be enough to make sure that the people, that if we rezoned, the people were able to remain in their homes. And now if we can't do anything about it, then you start to wonder as a councillor whether we should rezone anything, believe anybody. You know, and it also means that you know, that we need to have better advice. If we were assured at council at that time that this was going to ensure that those people would be able to remain in their homes, and that really is upsetting to me.
Councillor Niche.
I just have one question here. This one letter here that was written about, have you had a year's notice already, or is this a mistake on the letter saying that you need to be out by like a couple weeks ago.
No, they served us with an eviction notice, a year's eviction notice. But we didn't follow through and fight it because we have the contract with them. So it was actually, the eviction date was set for July 2nd. Is what the eviction notice states.
Okay, we're going to look further into this, and there'll be a prompt response and reply from the city.
Okay,
Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of public who'd like to come speak? In the regular meeting. Just if there's any other members of public who'd like to speak on any topic of their choice can come forward. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene the regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, you guys, for attending. Okay, I'll recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of August 20th, 2018 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, second by Councillor Moreau. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of July 23rd, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of July 23rd, 2018 be accepted. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Renhowa. All is in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up we have a petition and delegation. Mr. Mark Delude and Ms. Michelle Bryant from Ridley Terminals to talk about their berth expansion project. Welcome.
Okay, first of all, thank you for allowing us to present on our proposed project. My name is Michelle Bryant-Gravel, Corporate Affairs Manager for Ridley Terminals, and I have with me President and COO Mark Delude. So I'm just going to go through a brief overview of the proposed terminal berth expansion, and we'll entertain any questions following the presentation. So the existing terminal operations at Ridley Terminals, we have our stockpile yard here. We have sublease land to Ridley Island Propane Export Terminal here, and we have our existing terminal berth. Project components that we are proposing is the terminal expansion to accommodate a second berth southeast of the existing berth as an extension to the existing dock structure. So the primary components include expansion of the berth to allow simultaneous loading of 2 vessels, expansion of existing dock trestle to provide access to the new berth, construction of associated materials handling and ship loading equipment, dredging to accommodate navigational requirements for vessels, and disposal of dredged sediment. RTI and rail infrastructure will remain unchanged. This is really small. However, so what you see in the faint shape here, that is our existing berth. The proposed berth modification would come off of this loading arm, or not loading arm, this trestle of the existing berth, where we would propose to build the modification and the second dock. The rationale for the project is we are designing the berth to handle other bulk commodities to diversify export opportunities and reduce commercial risks associated with handling single product and extract maximum capacity of the existing terminal. The benefits of the second berth would be, the option was chosen because it has a small impact to the environment. Several options were looked at, and this one had the minimal footprint. It diversifies products that may be handled and exported. It increases economic activity overall. Berth expansion location preserves future options for expansion and construction and additional operational jobs from 20 to 40, as well as training. Provides an important economic development opportunity for Prince Rupert and Port Edward, and assists Canada to continue to be a strong global competitor as the Ridley Terminals is owned by the federal Crown. Some of the berth details. So the berth will consist of a single berth constructed of steel pipe piles and concrete superstructure, 3 distinct berthing platforms and 3 mooring dolphins. The new vehicle roadway access structure, which will span from the end of the existing trestle structure to the new wharf platform area. And just to give you an idea where that is, that would extend from here to here. Prefabricated walkways to provide access to the berthing and mooring dolphins, marine loading arms and liquefied propane gas infrastructure to facilitate LPG loading, and potential for adding trestle, wharf, and transfer conveyors and tower lowers to facilitate future dry bulk loading. And just a comparison of different vessels coming to the dock. Our original berth can handle 250,000 deadweight ton vessels, which is to scale this, not really to scale, but Cape-size vessel schematic. The new berth would handle capacity up to 80 to 90,000 metric or cubic meters, with a length of 230 meters, a beam of 35 meters, and a draft of 12 meters, so significantly smaller than the current berth options. In terms of the regulatory review, the project is located within an existing marine terminal on lands routinely and historically used as a marine terminal, on lands designated for use in Prince Rupert Port Authority's Land Use Management Plan. It's not a designated project and therefore doesn't require an environmental assessment under SIA 2012, rather a review under Section 67 of SIA. It's a project on federal lands, so the federal authorities will determine whether the project is likely to cause significant adverse environmental effects under Section 67 of SIA 2012. The Section 67 environmental effects evaluation process has started. There will be a draft coming out for public review shortly. And there will be other federal approvals that will be needed. There are currently, I'm not sure if that's in the, yeah, here we go. Those federal approvals may include Environment and Climate Change Canada Environment Protection Act disposal at sea regulations for disposal of dredge material at sea, Transport Canada Navigation Protection Act for in-water and project infrastructure, Fisheries and Oceans Canada Fisheries Act approval for in-water works that have the potential to cause serious harm to fish or fish habitat. There are 5 federal authorities reviewing this project: Ridley Terminals, as we are a federal crown, Prince Rupert Port Authority, Transport Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and Fisheries and Oceans Canada if a fisheries authorization is required, which we believe it will be. This is really tiny. So this is our proposed schedule. We had started the project early this year. We have composed a technical committee group consisting of the 6 First Nations as well as our technical consultants to discuss any issues and review any documents that needed to be reviewed with the First Nations under consultation requirements. Currently, we have had several of these technical committee meetings, which we have monthly. The next one, we have 2 coming up in September. So where we will be looking at the draft environmental effects evaluation before making that public. We hope to, after making that public, we hope to have the federal authorities make a determination by December of this year or January 2019. The current status, so the following steps in the regulatory process have been or are being taken. The project description has been prepared, reviewed by the federal authorities and the First Nations. We have a facilitator and representatives from the federal authorities and First Nations established a technical committee, and have met, well, this is more than 3 times, 4 times since March, developing evaluation methodologies, continuing to gather information, preparing draft environmental review, and preparing for public engagement. What is going to be happening is information is gathered primarily through desktop research from publicly available documents, environmental assessments from other projects in the area, environmental effects evaluations from other projects in the area, looking at regulatory guidelines, technical studies. We have completed a scuba study to survey and characterize the marine habitat around the berth. Public input will be sought for the project. First Nations and federal authorities inputs sought throughout the technical participation in our monthly meetings. The value components in the projects that will be looked at are marine mammals, marine, and I can never pronounce this right, and androdomous fish, marine birds, current use and land of resources for traditional purposes, human health and well-being, navigation at the berth, and there's no terrestrial project components proposed, therefore there's no terrestrial VCs. The potential effects that we'll be looking at to marine mammals, fish, and birds: a change in habitat available, sensory disturbance, displacement, change in mortality risk for current use on land and resources, change in access to traditional marine resources or activities, for human health and well-being, a change in air quality, water quality, noise, and lighting, change in health-related quality of marine country foods, navigation at the new berth, a change in the ability to access and safety conditions at the new berth or during construction and operation. Rail and vessel traffic expected to remain the same within the approved levels. And potential mitigations that we're proposing. So these are developed based on technical committee, public inputs, and industry practices and professional judgment. The mitigation examples that we're considering include construction environmental management plan, an updated emergency management plan. Federal decision conditions include mitigation. Permit conditions will outline conditions including mitigation, and operational procedures for administration, housekeeping, maintenance, and training contribute to the mitigation. Marine safety and emergency response. RTI will update our own operational procedures and management plans. Emergency response complies with RTI's existing health, safety, and environmental policies. All vessels calling at RTI require pilotage from the Triple Island Pilot Station. The dredge requirements for the project are is a relatively small dredge area, 55,000 cubic meters, which is equivalent to about 2.5 hectares. The dredge is expected to be to negative 14 meters. Average dredge depth is 2 meters, and maximum dredge depth is 5 meters. We expect the material to be sand, silt, and clay. Low level contamination is expected in the surface layer, and we had just finished last week pocket samples of the sediment that are being sent to the lab, which we should have analyzed by early September. Once the dredge starts, we have about a 60 to 90 day dredge duration, and once we know more what the components of the sediment are, we'd have better ideas of the disposal options. So these are the disposal options that we're currently looking at. A foreshore for beneficial reuse within the existing RTI terminal. We have number 3 crossed off because, which is within PRPA's spoil management area on Ridley Island, because they've already told us that's not available to us, but it was an option that we considered. Within a parcel A on Ridley Island, within licensed commercial disposal facility and disposal at sea. And this, once we know what the characterization of the sediment is, it may take a combination or variance depending on these disposal options, but these are the current ones that we're looking at. For public engagement, we will have meetings with municipal, regional, provincial, and federal leadership. We will have information on our website. We will place a newspaper advertisement when we have our documents ready for public viewing. We will have open houses scheduled in the fall, early fall, likely October, but one in Prince Rupert, one in Port Edward. And we will have comment cards and follow up with people who have questions relating to the project. And that's our presentation.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Niche, then Councillor Cunningham. Okay.
Just curious if this is a go-ahead, even if the terminal sells, as we've recently learned that it's up for sale. So is this a committed project regardless if it sells or if it doesn't sell, or is this something that is still not 100% committed?
That's a very good question. For us, Ottawa, who is the owner, current owner, who is potentially selling, and I insist on the term potentially because they just started the process of consulting the stakeholder about that. It's business as usual. So in our plant, we were seeing a major upturn in the coal business. We wanted to take advantage of it. We wanted to also, when you run a terminal like this, you run it for like 70 years. You have to think in terms of 70 years ahead. So for us, it's very essential to have this second dock in place. And as Michelle have described, this dock will have the capability also to handle liquid for sure, but also to handle some solid material in the future. Only time will tell us what kind of volume will transit through this facility. But for us right now, we think that the full capacity of the coal terminal will be used, and there's a need to develop capacity for additional volume for the future, because we have also a need to diversify and reduce the risk of exposure, because as you know, the coal market is going with up and down. So now we have to make several changes in the type of contract we have implemented, but just protect ourselves regarding tough time. So diversifying is also a key element in our strategic development for the future. So to your question, yes, it's business as usual. Yes, we need this dock, and we're just looking forward to start the operation at this dock as soon as possible.
Councillor Cunningham.
Couple questions. You say bulk commodities. Other than coal, are you thinking of shipping something else?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This terminal has a tremendous potential. You know, that's one of the reasons why I've accepted this job opportunity. Is I see Rupert as being a major North American gateway, and we're just implementing a strategy to develop that. So we see other potential business coming on stream. It's far from being signed. We have discussion with a couple of customers regarding that, but sometimes it's taking 2-3 years to become a reality. It's just to be ready. You know, the winner in this game are the ones that are ready for all kind of option and can turn on a dime. So I really pushing this organization to become this kind of organization right now. So be capable to respond quickly, because the window of opportunity is very thin. You must be ready to jump when it's open. So for us, it's very important to have this kind of mentality, and we're developing that right now.
And my other question is, after the construction phase, how many permanent jobs will be created?
Right now, we already in a process, because we know which contract is going to come in play within the next 4 or 5 years. So we're already in process of hiring people. So we are actually at 125, and we're going to move to 150. We're going to take advantage of this opportunity also to improve our situation regarding gender and origin equity. So we're far from being perfect in this regard. So we will do everything possible to increase the number of people that having a better representation of the local population. So we're going for that, and we're going to be in a range of 150 for sure in the next year and a half. After that, if the other project fall in place, yes, we will continue to increase the number of jobs, and this is basically why I've accepted to take this challenge.
And are you going to follow the past practices of hiring local whenever you can?
Yes, and again, I want to have a better representation of local community. So I want to have more First Nation. I want to have more women involved into this operation. And I want to also we're implementing program where we're going to identify the talent that can help us, because the challenge is going to come about, you know, developing talents in the future. The terminal business will change. We're going to see more automation taking place if we want to cope with the competitions. So the terminal will change gradually. So we will need more people having a different kind of skill and knowledge. So we were already working in the development of those talent. And making them aware that there is a job opportunity, and developing them to occupy those challenging and key jobs at our terminal.
Okay, and my last thing is I'd like to say thank you for coming and compliment RTI on their community involvement. They've been a large part of the community in so many different ways. Michelle seems to be everywhere at once.
I had the privilege to join a very good organization. Honestly, that's when you join a company that's experiencing difficulties, you always think in terms of I may have to make some changes. Very talented people, extremely talented. So I'm very lucky, and they have done a great job in getting the social license, and I'm just supporting them in this regard. And I don't mind if she's everywhere, as long as she's doing a good job.
Councillor Renhoa, then Moreau.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You good? Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. So what's the timeline? Like, if everything goes fine, when we can see the first ship dock there?
Our planning is getting the permit December 2018 or first quarter of 19, and we plan to be operational by first quarter of 2021. And everything is aligned to, I need that for 2021, honestly. We're not overexposed, we pay very big attention, make sure that we will not oversell. We don't want to be in the airline business. But we will release a lot of options that we have on the table right now.
And second question is, like you said, you will be looking 20 to 40 people, hiring local. So if you can't find some specific jobs, some extra training, so do you think about training facility here? Like Alta Gas, they're training local people here. So do you think about that thing to train our local people?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We have been training people since 2013. We have a partnership with the school district and the local community college that's called Coastal Pathways Partnership, and we've been running electrical training as well as millwright training in the community, and I believe both have gone to level 3.
Can I add also that we have invested heavily this year into education program also to make the kids exposed to robotics and development of programming robots. So it's going to be key in the future. This is the future jobs. So we're already starting with the first grades students. So it's about the vision, about what kind of employee we will need in the future and what kind of knowledge they must have. And again, the next step is to identify the talent and raise those talents, supporting them financially and making them good potential employees for RTI and potentially replacing me also. And if not, they're gonna be so good that they're gonna have a job opportunity and become the leader of their community in the future. So we want to develop this knowledge, the leadership also, which is very important, and entrepreneurial spirit also they may carry. That's gonna make a difference in the community in the future. It's more than just having a job. It's developing the mentality that is for me key in the future.
Thank you for doing for our community. Thank you.
Other questions from council?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you very much, Michelle, for your presentation. And one of the things I'm impressed about is that you're actually thinking of, Ridley Terminals is actually thinking of doing some on-land disposal as well as some at-sea disposal. As I'm sure you're well aware of the pushback that people have with the at-sea disposal of anything that might contaminate the estuary. So I'm really pleased to hear that Ridley is considering maybe an at-sea and an on-land disposal. So I'd like to thank you very much for doing that. And the other thing, Mr. Mayor, that I'd like to say is that I am concerned about the sale of Ridley Terminals. I think this is maybe the third time that the federal government is considering selling it, and it always happens when Ridley Terminals is looking at like they're making a profit. And I think that we don't know if another coal company will buy Ridley Terminals and shut it down. If it's a Australian or American coal company, they could very well do that. I would be very concerned that and I think we should perhaps take a stand. We did in the past and say that we don't want to see our infrastructure which the government of Canada owns. We, the people of Canada, subsidized Ridley Terminals when it was doing poorly by ensuring that it got federal money in order to maintain itself. And now, when it's when it's once again at the cusp of moving forward, that we are going to sell it off, and people of Canada don't get the ongoing profits that the operation is going to be making. And I think that's a terrible thing, and it means that we have less community control and less community input into a foreign corporation, and that's what I believe doubtlessly is going to be interested in Ridley. And I'm just hoping that we can put some pressure on the federal government and say, don't sell the terminal. We should keep it here. We should keep control over our own port by our own country.
I'm not sure you guys can comment on that or not, but it's probably
Exactly.
above your
I
head.
can comment. I can only recommend or suggest that you should talk to the minister about that. For us, it's just, again, business as usual. The people that have to handle the political aspect of the sales are based in Ottawa, so you can express your opinion to them. Anyway, it's consultation process starting right now, so it doesn't mean that it's going to come to conclusion.
Okay, any further questions? Well, thank you very much for your time today. It was a very informative presentation, and we look forward to seeing the progress being made. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, too.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Okay, so next we have an opportunity to comment on two variance permits. We're changing the format a bit, allowing the public to have comment on the permits. And what I'll say is we have two permits up for question today. One is at 1005 First Avenue West, and one is at 1641 Overlook Street. And so I'll allow the community any opportunity to come forward to speak on any of those development permits. Seeing none in the audience, we'll move on. Cool, so next up we have our reports from our city planner here regarding those variance permits and a couple other items. So come on forward there, Mr. Krikik. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Always a pleasure to be sitting before you. The first development variance permit is for the property located at 1641 Overlook Street. It is to vary the side yard setback from 4 feet or 1.2 meters to 1.05 feet or 0.3 meters to accommodate an extension of already existing non-conforming walkway, which would gain access to the new deck that's under construction. The proposed variance will be hardly visible from the street, and it will have very low impact on the neighborhood and the neighbor next to him. The public notice were distributed July 24th, and to conclude, as of the date of this report, and indeed as of today, there were no objections that would prevent approval of this application. This concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moved by Councillor Niche and seconded by Councillor Morrow that the development variance permit application number DP 1807 for 1641 Overlook Street proceed to final consideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried.
The development variance permit is for the property located at 1045 First Avenue West. It is to vary the side yard on the existing building. So essentially the variance is for the second floor that would vary at the front of the house side yard setback from 1.2 meters or 4 feet to 1.1 meters, 3.8 feet, and at the rear of the house from 1.2 meters, 4 feet, to 0.9 meters or 3.2 feet. The proposed variance will allow substantial improvement of the existing house. And although this illustration is descriptive, it is not to scale. And it worth to note that the final product height will be below the maximum permitted height of 9 meters at 29.5 feet. Public notifications were distributed July 24 as of the date of this report, which was August 20th. And indeed, today, there were no objections received that would prevent approval of this application. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments? Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Randhawa, that the development variance permit application DP 1808 for 1045 First Avenue West proceed to final consideration. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have a report from our approving officer, Mr. Pucci, a proposal to stratify 2021 and 2025 Seal Cove Circle.
Thank you, Mayor Brain. So I'm here on behalf of the approving officer, the Office of the Approving Officer. So the recommendation is that council receive the application as noted in the council package to convert the duplex at 2021-2025 Seal Cove Circle into 2 strata units. It is the approving officer's recommendation that the approval of the strata conversion be granted. In February of 2018, the approving officer received an application for the stratification of the duplex located at 2021-2025 Seal Cove Circle. The intent is to convert the existing duplex into 2 separate strata units. According to the BC Strata Property Act, the municipal council must give approval. This is to ensure municipal bylaws and rental priorities in the area. In reference to rental priorities and accommodation, this will not affect either. In regard to compliance with municipal bylaws, the electrical code, building code, fire inspections, all the conditions have been met. The operations department has reviewed the servicing for the aforementioned property and has concluded that it meets all current requirements. There are no identifiable costs associated with the proposed strata application for stratification. So the recommendation from the approving officer is to approve the strata conversion. Thank you.
Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So after conversion, the property tax will be same or it will be different for the city?
It would depend on their assessed value, whether it changed, right? That would really be it. The property tax rates are assessed on residential properties, right? And commercial and light industrial properties. The rate is set. It depends on the change in their assessed values.
Did you have a comment? Okay, so moved by Councillor Moreau and seconded by Councillor Niche that we take staff's recommendation to approve the strata conversion. Councillor Henry.
I just have a question for Mr. Pucci. Evidently there was a fire in this place and it was recently renovated. Now, because we're strata titling it, is it any different than a dual rental unit as far as a separation firewall between the 2 units? Or is it just...
Yes, absolutely. There is a firewall between the 2 units. So that firewall was already in place in those 2 units, and the fire department has gone through it for fire code as well and checked all that, as well as the building department.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. And report from our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. This is the June 2018 financial variance report. Most operating and utility revenues and expenses are on track for this time of year and are within budget. This is the halfway point in our fiscal year. Capital projects are ongoing, given the fact that it is halfway through the construction season. Costs will continue to come in and will be reported on monthly. The new Woodworth Dam project is out for tender. That's one of our biggest projects that we were undertaking this year. The bulk of this project will not be taken on this budget year, and so the majority of this portion of the water budget will be carried forward to 2019 after the tender is awarded. Thank you.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Renhawa, seconded by Councillor Niche, that Council receive this report for information purposes. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Ms. Baumann. Next up, we have a letter from the Prince Rupert and District Métis Society. Recommendation that Council proclaim November 12th to 16th, 2018 as Métis Awareness Week in the City of Prince Rupert. Moved by Councillor Moreau, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. Any comments? I think it's something naturally we'd like to do. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Is there any event tied into this, like a celebration of some kind, or is this just a proclamation for the week?
I think it's just a proclamation, as many of the proclamations are. So, yeah, and maybe they are planning on something that I haven't heard about that yet.
No party?
Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, last up are bylaws. Oh yes, correct. Thank you. So to finish off this bylaw, a recommendation that Council adopts the Vehicle for Hire Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 3429, 2018. Moved by Councillor Moreau, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Mr. Vera, we can go grab Mr. Rantawa. Okay, reports from members of council. Councillor Renhawa, then Councillor Moreau.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. With tourists and our local residents getting lots of good feedback for our baskets and all garden work. So I'd like to thank all the city workers for doing a great job.
Great, thank you. Councillor Moreau.
I just had a question for our CFO. Now that the dust has settled around the exemptions that the provincial government's going to be granting around the new payroll tax as the MSP is phased out, I'm just wondering, in our package this week there was a letter from Williams Lake and Houston that are both appealing to the government to exempt municipalities. I'm wondering if we might be able to get a report into the projected financial impact on the city of Prince Rupert of what the payroll tax would look like for our jurisdiction, if possible.
Absolutely, I can provide that.
Thank you. Any further reports? Councillor Cunningham.
A couple of things. First of all, I took place in the Overlook Community Garden for a couple of hours on a nice hot sunny day, and I'd like to compliment the Transition Society and Sarah Danson for who's here in the audience for putting that on. It was a nice display of community spirit. There was quite a few people came out over the, I guess, 6 hour. I was only there for 2, but it was nice to see the community come together, and a lot of relatively new people to the community that are young that got involved in it. So it's a nice little thing, and there was talk of them putting more in the city and that. So I think it would be a good thing for the community. It brings a lot of people together. I was quite surprised how enthusiastic people were, and there were people that weren't just from that neighborhood, but from other parts of town. So it's something that I hope they continue. And a couple of other things. Our purchasing policy, is it the lowest price all the time, or is there consideration taken into other factors?
Definitely, there's qualitative factors as well. So, but yes, price is one of the considerations. But we look at capabilities. If we ask for any letters of reference, those sorts of things, that's generally what is considered. We try to have an all-encompassing value for money determination.
So local businesses aren't giving preference if they're within a certain percentage of the lowest bid?
That is not in our purchasing policy, no.
And two other things. It was brought to my attention a person in the neighborhood had a broken water line just inside the city or inside their property, and it was after hours, and they thought like the bill they got was a quarter of their utility bill, $255. Is that standard call out?
Based on the union contract, it's a minimum 4-hour call out, but I can definitely investigate into that.
Okay, it seemed kind of steep. And one other thing I've got is on February 26th, this council passed a resolution that, as it was that the City of Prince Rupert develop an invitation schedule for taxpayer-funded organizations to present an annual progress report and discuss opportunities for enhancing civic programs and services, inclusive of but not exclusive to the library, airport, Leicester Centre Museum, RCMP, Fire Hall, Tourism Prince Rupert, and the golf course. And it's 6 months later, and we haven't had one of these groups come before council at the COW, and that was the resolution that we were going to enhance the Committee of the Whole or COW meetings. And, you know, I think it's part of this transparency that we're trying to get out there, that that's why I brought that resolution forward. And I've just noticed, I was just going through some old notes and found that, and noticed that in the last 6 months we haven't had one group other than one that was specifically invited to come before council. And I hope during the next council, because I don't believe there's any more cows, that this resolution is respected and carried through.
Well, I'll look into that. I'm not sure how that maybe fell off the radar, so I'll look into that for sure. Any other reports from council? Councillor Niche?
Just thought I'd throw it out there that October, is it 20th this year that the election? Everyone probably is used to a November election, and this year it's earlier. So, and I'm sure all of us will be coming forward soon to tell us if we're going ahead. I'm going ahead. I won't say speak for anyone else, but I will be putting my name forward once again.
Thank you. Any other reports from council?
Yeah, I have something. I was wondering if anybody knows, I couldn't quite catch what they said on the consultation date for the Ridley terminal, the sale Ridley terminals.
I don't think they mentioned the date on that. They were mentioning they were going to do public consultation for the Berth project in the fall, but I don't think there was a date on that. But I think, yeah, you could probably touch base with our MP, Nathan Cullen. I'm pretty sure he's aware of all the details.
I was thinking that we should, last time, I know for sure, the last time it was offered for sale, City Council took a stand against the sale of Ridley Terminal, and I was thinking that we should continue that stand against the sale of Ridley out of the federal government into a private owner. It's a waste of Canada's money, and it also means that, I believe anyway, we will have an organization that is going to be less responsive to the community's needs. So, you know, if some American or Australian outfit buys it, they could buy it to shut it down as a competitor. And I've seen that happen many times in the commercial fishing industry, and I'm sure it happens in the coal sector as well. So I would like to make a motion that we write a letter to, similar to the last letter the City Council wrote, to the federal government, and send it into their process, if they have a process regarding the sale, saying that we don't believe that the Government of Canada should be selling Ridley Coal Terminal, that they should keep it under Government of Canada's jurisdiction and allow it to make money for the people of Canada.
Well, I was just going to say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think it's a great idea, and I'd second it, or Councillor Rondawa can second it, but I think it's definitely something we should take into consideration, that we control, or the community. That company has been such a great boon to this community, giving back more than they take out sometimes, it seems. And they've been here through thick and thin, and I think we should support them in any way, because what Councillor Thorkelson's talking about is very realistic. They're a thorn in the side of a couple of coal companies in other countries, and it would be very convenient to just shut them down if, you know, it's not a nice thing to do, but that's business. So if we can help in any way to enhance them staying the company they are, then I would say we should support it.
Good. So just to clarify, the motion's on the table. It's been moved and seconded.
No, I was actually going to say this probably should be carried as a notice of motion for the next council meeting. That's most likely the procedure bylaw we should do it that way. So we'll consider this for the next council meeting, Councillor Thorkelson.
My only concern was if the was if the timing of the public consultation process is going to be over by the time we got with the next council meeting. Otherwise, I would be perfectly happy to wait till the next council meeting. I don't know how we want to handle that. The only reason I made that motion at this council meeting instead of giving you a notice of motion was because I didn't know the deadline for the consultation process.
I don't believe it's before the 4th, but what we can do is we'll find out, and if so, we can call a special meeting for the resolution if needed.
Sure, that would be fine with me. I just want to make sure that if council felt as strongly as I felt, that we would do it now and get it into the system before they decide before the consultation period closes.
Okay, noted. Okay, so we'll make sure that it will be on for the next agenda. Okay, any further reports? Okay, so motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Means adjourn. Thank you very much.